KTRS.
It's Jay Kanzler, and it's 8:36, and we're joined by Michael Highsmith.
How's it going?
Good. You're a policy researcher at the Show Me Institute.
That's correct, yeah.
You're going to talk to us about public pensions.
Yeah, so we actually had some news come out last week that we're going to be adding about $50 million towards the Missouri State Employees Retirement System. And that's going to take a toll on the budget for Missouri overall. What we're looking at right now is a ticking time bomb, essentially. With pension plans, the way it works is that you have a promised amount that's going towards taxpayers, or that's going towards employees. And if investment returns aren't as large as you would expect them to be, then taxpayers are on the hook to make the difference here. And what we're looking at is a lot of times these plans aren't receiving the returns that they're expecting. And
this, your research is focused on pensions in government, or the public pensions.
These are government pensions.
We've seen time and time again how in the private sector the pensions have not lived up to the expectations or the promises, and frankly have left many workers without a pension. Do we see the same thing about to happen in the public sector?
Right. So this is exactly what we're looking at. Roughly 85% of private pension plans are defined contribution, which means that they're not a promised benefit. Rather, whatever the employee accrues with their investments, that's what they're going to get. Think like a 401k or one of those kind of pension plans. But with public plans, roughly only a third of them are that. What we're working with is more defined benefit plans. So what that means is that if there's a promise, that promise has to be kept. And if those investment returns don't make it up to that, then you're out of luck. The taxpayers have to foot the bill.
Well, one example is what the Missouri State Auditor found in Bridgeton. Is that correct?
Yes.
What did she find?
Well, Bridgeton had a little bit of oversight, actually. What they found is that the commission board didn't meet for 3 whole years to even look over how their pension plans were doing. So obviously things were a mess when they came to it. They found the plan was only 2/3 funded. There were $14 million in unfunded liabilities. So what that means is that's $14 million that weren't available to be paid towards employees.
So I know the mayor said, oh, if you were guaranteed a pension, you're going to get that pension. But how do you do that? How do you fund an underfunded pension when you don't have the money?
When it comes to these kind of pensions, obviously everyone wants to have retirement funds. There's no one who wants to leave employees who are planning on retirement out in the dry and not have anything. So in order to make that happen, one of two things has to happen. Either taxpayers have to increase their contributions, they have to pay more, or else other municipal services suffer. And if neither one of those happen, then employees won't have enough to retire on.
Bridgeton's not the only city with problems, are they?
This is actually a nationwide trend, and the unfunded liabilities, the gap between how much pensions have right now and what they're expected to pay out, is valued at over $1 trillion nationwide. So that's trillion with a T.
Right. I know in my work as a lawyer, I've dealt with the unfunded liabilities in the Teamsters pension plan. Mm-hmm. And that is, millions, if not billions, if not trillions of dollars. And at various points along the way, the federal government has had to step in and say, okay, we are going to help try to cushion the blow here, because these folks were expecting a pension, and now the companies, the union, it's just not there.
Right. And what you're looking at right there, if you add contributions, it's essentially just doubling down on a bet. It's still assuming that things are going to continue gaining returns, and if returns are lower than they're expected, you're going to be seeing the exact same things as what you saw a couple of years ago.
The truth is, at some point, if they can't pay the money, whether it be the city of Bridgeton or whether it become, it's the Teamsters Union, and nobody wants to bail them out or can bail them out, that leaves the workers without a pension.
Right.
Bottom line.
That's the bottom line. And everything we've seen thus far, they've been legally binding, though. So chances are employees will get a pension, and I certainly hope that they will. But again, it's a matter of, on the forefront, you need to plan ahead for these kind of things, and it's whether we have the funds for that kind of situation or not.
So I assume that the Show Me Institute has considered an alternative.
We have.
And you're going to tell us what that is.
Yeah, so what we've been talking about is defined benefit plans is what it's called, and it gets a little wordy. The solution is called a defined contribution plan, and like I said earlier, what that is essentially is a 401k. So these are transferable. It'll follow you from one job to another. You've got anything that you're put into it, the employee is in charge of how they want to invest it, and then when they're done, when they're ready to retire, those funds are made available to them.
Is there a guarantee, though, in these plans?
No, so
when I, if over the course of my employment, I contribute $30,000, am I guaranteed that $30,000 is there, or is the company or someone else use that?
There's no guarantee that you will have that $30,000, but again, it's the same as if you were to save money on your own and if you were going to invest it. So what this does is it puts that money into the employee's hand and lets them choose how they want to invest it. And the biggest thing here is that it reduces overpromising. It reduces the dangers of promising higher returns than what actually can be returned, or what most likely will be returned.
Do we see any movement away from the old-fashioned pension plan in the public sector, in government, and toward this defined benefit plan?
Yeah, so in the past, almost all pension plans were defined benefit, and over time, we've definitely seen a movement towards the defined contribution as people are realizing that these kind of investment returns can't be met. But we're still seeing a slow movement towards it. Like I said, private plans, almost all of them are switching to this. Public plans are moving a little slower.
Yeah, I know that many of my friends who work in government, they talk about their pension. They're, they're holding on until they reach a certain point in time, and they say, I qualify or I vest in my pension, and then I'm going to retire.
Right.
They're counting on this money.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is the state of Missouri going to pay off on this promise?
This is something that people base their lives around. This is something you're planning on, and you'd certainly hope that's available to an employee when they retire.
Yeah. So, at the end of the day, what is is there a solution? Let me ask you this, is the Show Me Institute even taking a look at whether or not employers should be in the business of providing pensions?
Well, I think, again, the biggest thing here is that it's a risk. So what we're looking at is something that can't be guaranteed, and it needs to be guaranteed if it's a pension, so it's promised. But if it's not able to be guaranteed with investment returns, that's a danger right there. So what we're the alternative here, is that you need to value things at a much safer risk. So if you value something at 7%, but realistically you're only going to get 3%, 4% returns on it, you're going to have a pretty big funding gap here. And that's the kind of promise that you can't guarantee.
Michael Highsmith from the Show Me Institute, a research policy analyst. Quickly before we leave, what does a research policy analyst do?
Talks about things just like this. We look at policy issues throughout Missouri and see how we provide alternatives to them.
I want to do that.
Yeah?
Do you just sit around and think all day?
A lot of thinking, yep.
Excellent. Michael Highsmith with the Show Me Institute research policy analyst, talking about public pension plans. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Jay.
It's 8:45, KTRS, the Big 550.
I'm Dr. Dan Gagliotti, host of the